Tuesday, October 31st, 2017, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. This is a sad day for Bitcoin, in my opinion. Not because the price has collapsed or anything or dropped, but because the CME group has announced that they're going to launch Bitcoin futures. CME stands for Chicago Mercantile Exchange. They're the largest futures exchange in the world. They merged, CME and CBOT merged years ago. There used to be two different exchanges. CME also owns the COMEX, where they trade gold and silver futures. And why do I think this is a sad day for Bitcoin? Because this will mean that the price of Bitcoin is going to be manipulated by by Wall Street and the big banks, just like they do to gold and silver, to paper gold and silver. And I read here the press release from the CME. It says, CME Group, the world's leading and most diverse derivatives marketplace, today announced it intends to launch Bitcoin futures in the fourth quarter of 2017, pending all relevant regulatory review periods. And the most important thing that makes this even worse than gold and silver, I think they're going to manipulate it even more. It says here, the new contract will be cash settled. What does cash settled mean? Well, it just means that a buyer of the Bitcoin future, someone that goes long the future, will not be able to take delivery of Bitcoin. There will be no Bitcoin involved. It will basically, and the seller of Bitcoin future will not have to have any Bitcoin to deliver. So it's basically a bucket shop, and it will be susceptible to a lot of manipulation. It's incredible that this is happening. I'm not surprised, though. I think this is the way they're going to try to, put a stop to Bitcoin, the financial powers that be. So it's interesting because gold, of course, physical monetary gold was banned in the US from 1933 to January 1st, 1975. And if you look at the history of the gold futures contract on COMEX, and I'm reading here from Wikipedia, it says, although the commodity exchange COMEX was founded in 1933, COMEX began trading gold futures on December 31st, 1974, when the prohibition on private ownership of gold in the US was lifted. So you can see that the powers that be did allow Americans to own gold again, but they had to be in control of the price through a futures exchange. The other thing it does is that futures all the time, not usually, are highly leveraged. So you'll be able to control one Bitcoin, let's say $6,000 worth of Bitcoin, with just $600 margin, for example. So it's going to make, I think this is a sad day. It defeats the whole purpose of having a cryptocurrency. I'm not blaming Bitcoin because it's decentralized. There's no a way that people can stop this. But this is bad news, in my opinion. We've seen the years of manipulation in gold and silver through the futures market. Very little physical gold and silver being, actually traded for on COMEX. And there's going to be very little Bitcoin traded through, well, there's going to be no Bitcoin traded through the CME because it's cash settled. It's a bucket shop. So this is bad news, in my opinion. People probably haven't realized that this could be a bad thing, but I worked in the futures market for over 20 years for, here in London. And I personally didn't encourage, clients not to take delivery of gold and silver. I did trade some gold futures for clients and silver, but all the firms in London and New York completely discourage their clients from taking physical delivery. But in this case, for Bitcoin futures, they won't even be able to do it because it's a cash settled contract. I haven't seen yet the specs of the contracts, how many Bitcoins per future they're gonna have, or if they're gonna have a future that is worth a certain dollar amount. But it'll probably be like gold. The gold future is 100 ounces per future. Maybe it will be 10 or 20 Bitcoin per future. And you won't need, of course, the whole dollar amount. It will be leveraged. There will be margin. And it's gonna, a lot of small investors are gonna get involved and they're gonna get fleeced. Not that Bitcoin isn't already really volatile. It's very volatile. You can buy here at 6,000. It could very easily drop back down to 3,000 in a couple of weeks' time. But now with the future, look out. So it might sound like good news. CME Group, launches Bitcoin futures. But personally, I think it's bad news. It's centralizing, it's defeating the purpose of the decentralized, autonomous, community of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, because the CME Group, is basically overseen by the U.S. Treasury, by the Commodity Futures Commission, Trade, the CFTC, sorry. It's overseen by the SEC, not the SEC, but the CFTC, but they're all part of this working group on financial markets, which includes the U.S. Treasury, the Federal Reserve, CFTC, SEC. So this is horrible news, in my opinion, for Bitcoin. Not directly the Bitcoin that you hold in your wallet, but for the marketplace of Bitcoin, for what the price is going to do. So that's what I wanted to talk about. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share it far and wide, subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet, and you can follow me on Twitter and also on steemit.com. And we'll have to see what develops with this Bitcoin future. Take care. Bye.